When an airline denied a black colonel his seat, they thought it was just another overbooked flight, until they realized they'd messed with the wrong passenger and ignited a firestorm that would change everything. The sun was setting over the bustling city of Atlanta, casting a golden hue over Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. Inside the terminal, travelers hurried to their gates, dragging suitcases and clutching boarding passes. Among them was Colonel Marcus Johnson, a decorated officer in the United States Air Force. Dressed in his crisp uniform, adorned with medals and insignias, he carried himself with the quiet confidence of a man who had served his country with honor. He was heading to Washington, D.C. for a high-level meeting at the Pentagon. Colonel Johnson approached the check-in counter of Sky High Airlines, a budget carrier known for its no-frills service. He handed his ticket and military ID to the agent, a young woman with a name tag that read *Jessica*. She glanced at his documents, then at him, her expression shifting from polite professionalism to something colder. "I'm sorry, sir," Jessica said, her tone clipped. "We're overbooked on this flight. You'll have to take the next one." Colonel Johnson raised an eyebrow. "Overbooked? I booked this ticket weeks ago, and I'm a member of your loyalty program." Jessica hesitated, then shrugged. "I'm afraid there's nothing I can do. It's company policy." Colonel Johnson wasn't one to make a scene, but this felt off. He glanced around the counter and noticed other passengers, none of whom were black, being handed boarding passes without issue. His jaw tightened. He faced discrimination before, but this was different. This wasn't just about him, it was about the uniform he wore, the country he served. "Ma'am," he said, his voice calm but firm, "I need to be on this flight. It's a matter of national security." Jessica's eyes flicked to his uniform, then back to her screen. "I'm sorry, sir. Like I said, there's nothing I can do." Before Colonel Johnson could respond, a man in a Sky High Airlines blazer approached. He introduced himself as the gate manager, Mr. Harris. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, though his tone suggested he already thought he knew the answer. "Yes, there is," Colonel Johnson replied. "I'm being denied boarding despite having a confirmed ticket. I need to speak with someone in authority." Mr. Harris crossed his arms. "Sir, we're following protocol. If you continue to cause a disturbance, we'll have to involve security." As the confrontation escalated, a crowd began to gather. Passengers whispered to each other, some pulling out phones to record the scene. Among them was a woman named Sarah Mitchell, a journalist for a major news outlet. She recognized the significance of what was unfolding and started live streaming the incident on social media. Colonel Johnson, aware of the growing audience, decided to take a different approach. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number. "This is Colonel Marcus Johnson," he said when the call connected. "I need immediate assistance at Gate B12 at Hartsfield-Jackson." "Yes, that's correct. Thank you." Mr. Harris scoffed. "Who are you calling the president?" "No," Colonel Johnson replied, his voice steady. "The Pentagon." Within minutes, the atmosphere at the gate shifted dramatically. A team of airport security officers arrived, followed by two men in dark suits who identified themselves as Department of Defense officials. They spoke briefly with Colonel Johnson, then turned to Mr. Harris and Jessica. "Colonel Johnson is on official military business," one of the officials said. "You will board him immediately." Mr. Harris stammered, But the flight is overbooked." "They'll find a way to make room," the official replied, his tone leaving no room for argument. As Colonel Johnson finally boarded the plane, the passengers erupted into applause. Sarah's live stream had gone viral, with millions of viewers tuning in to watch the unfolding drama. By the time the plane took off, #Colonel Johnson was trending on social media, and Sky High Airlines was facing a public relations nightmare. The fallout from the incident at Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport was swift and far-reaching. Within hours of Sarah Mitchell's live stream going viral, the story had spread like wildfire across social media platforms, news outlets, and television networks. The #, Colonel Johnson began trending worldwide, with millions of people expressing outrage, solidarity, and support for the decorated Air Force officer who had been wronged. The public's reaction was visceral, and Sky High Airlines found itself at the center of a storm it had never anticipated. The airline's initial response was defensive. In a hastily drafted statement released on their official social media accounts, Sky High Airlines claimed that the incident was a misunderstanding and that they were deeply sorry for any inconvenience caused to Colonel Johnson. They emphasized their commitment to treating all passengers with respect and dignity, and promised to conduct an internal review of their policies. However, the public wasn't buying it. The video evidence was damning, and Colonel Johnson's calm yet firm demeanor throughout the ordeal had struck a chord with viewers. People saw through the airline's vague apology and demanded accountability. As the backlash grew, Sky-High Airlines faced a public relations nightmare. Their stock prices plummeted as investors worried about the long-term damage to the brand. Social media was flooded with calls for a boycott, and passengers began sharing their own stories of mistreatment by the airline. It became clear that this wasn't an isolated incident, but part of a larger pattern of systemic issues within the company. The airline's CEO, Gregory Thornton, held a press conference in an attempt to quell the outrage, but his scripted remarks and lack of genuine remorse only fueled the fire. Meanwhile, Colonel Johnson became a national symbol of resilience and dignity. His story resonated with people from all walks of life, particularly those who had experienced discrimination or injustice. He was invited to speak at press conferences, on morning talk shows, and even before Congress. In every appearance, he carried himself with the same quiet strength that had defined him during the incident. He used his platform not to seek personal vindication, but to shed light on the broader issues of racial bias and systemic inequality. "This isn't just about me," Colonel Johnson said during an emotional interview on a popular news program. "It's about every person who's ever been treated unfairly because of the color of their skin, their gender, their religion, or any other aspect of their identity. It's about holding institutions accountable and demanding change. We have to do better." His words struck a chord, and the public's admiration for him only grew. People began sharing their own stories of discrimination, using the hashtag #WeAreColonelJohnson to show solidarity. The movement gained momentum, and soon politicians, celebrities, and activists were joining the conversation. The incident had sparked a national dialogue about racial bias in the travel industry and beyond. Sarah Mitchell, the journalist who had live-streamed the incident, played a pivotal role in keeping the story alive. Her article, titled "The Colonel Who Wouldn't Back Down," was published in a major national newspaper and quickly went viral. In it, she not only recounted the events of that day, but also delved into the broader implications of the incident. She interviewed experts on racial bias, spoke with other passengers who had faced similar treatment, and even obtained internal documents from Sky-High Airlines that revealed a pattern of complaints about discriminatory practices. Sarah's investigative work earned her widespread acclaim and several prestigious journalism awards. But more importantly, it kept the pressure on Sky-High Airlines to take meaningful action. The airline's board of directors, realizing the severity of the situation, announced a series of sweeping changes. They hired an independent firm to conduct a comprehensive review of their policies and practices, committed to implementing mandatory anti-bias training for all employees, and established a diversity and inclusion task force to oversee these efforts. The changes weren't just cosmetic. Under pressure from shareholders and the public, the airline's CEO, Gregory Thornton, resigned. His replacement, Maria Gonzalez, was a seasoned executive with a reputation for turning around struggling companies. In her first public statement, she acknowledged the airline's failures and pledged to rebuild trust with the public. "We have a long way to go," she said, "but we are committed to doing the work necessary to ensure that every passenger is treated with the respect and dignity they deserve." For Colonel Johnson, the aftermath of the incident was both overwhelming and empowering. He received thousands of letters and messages from people around the world, thanking him for standing up for what was right. He was invited to join a Department of Defense task force aimed at addressing discrimination within the travel industry, where he worked alongside policymakers, advocates, and industry leaders to develop new guidelines and best practices. But perhaps the most meaningful moment came when Jessica, the check-in agent who had initially denied him boarding, reached out to him. In a heartfelt letter, she apologized for her actions and admitted that she had acted out of fear and ignorance. She explained that she had been following what she thought were company protocols, but realized too late that she had been complicit in an unjust system. Colonel Johnson accepted her apology and encouraged her to use the experience as an opportunity for growth. "We all make mistakes," he wrote back. "What matters is what we do afterward. Use this as a chance to learn and to help others do the same." The incident also had a profound impact on Colonel Johnson's personal life. He became a role model for his children and a source of pride for his community. His story was taught in schools as an example of courage and integrity, and he was invited to speak at events across the country. Despite the attention, he remained humble and focused on his mission. "I didn't set out to be a hero," he often said. "I just wanted to do what was right." As the months passed, the story began to fade from the headlines, but its impact endured. Sky High Airlines, now under new leadership, worked to rebuild its reputation and implement the changes it had promised. The travel industry as a whole began to take a closer look at its practices, and other airlines followed suit by introducing anti-bias training and diversity initiatives. For Colonel Johnson, the journey was far from over. He continued to serve in the Air Force, rising through the ranks and earning even greater respect from his peers. He also became an advocate for social justice, using his platform to speak out against discrimination and inequality in all its forms. The incident at Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport had been a turning point, not just for Colonel Johnson, but for the countless others who found inspiration in his story. It was a reminder that standing up for what's right, even in the face of adversity, can lead to meaningful change. And as Colonel Johnson boarded his next flight, this time greeted with respect and gratitude, he knew that he had made a difference, one flight at a time. The resolution of the incident involving Colonel Marcus Johnson and Sky High Airlines was not just a conclusion to a single event, but a transformative moment that rippled across industries, communities, and the nation as a whole. What began as a personal ordeal for Colonel Johnson evolved into a catalyst for systemic change, leaving an indelible mark on the travel industry and beyond. The resolution was multifaceted, involving personal growth, corporate accountability, and societal progress, each layer contributing to a broader narrative of justice and reform. For Colonel Johnson, the resolution was both a personal and professional triumph. In the months following the incident, he was promoted to the rank of Brigadier General, a testament to his exemplary service and leadership. The promotion was celebrated not only within the military community, but also by the public, who saw it as a well-deserved recognition of his courage and integrity. Brigadier General Johnson continued to serve with distinction, taking on new responsibilities that allowed him to influence policy and advocate for diversity and inclusion within the armed forces. His role on the Department of Defense Task Force addressing discrimination in the travel industry was particularly impactful. The task force, composed of military officials, industry leaders, and civil rights advocates, worked tirelessly to develop guidelines and best practices aimed at preventing incidents like the one Colonel Johnson had experienced. These guidelines included mandatory anti-bias training for airline staff, clear protocols for handling discrimination complaints, and partnerships with advocacy organizations to monitor compliance. The task force's work was widely praised, and its recommendations were adopted by several major airlines, setting a new standard for the industry. Colonel Johnson's influence extended beyond the military and the travel industry. He became a sought-after speaker, sharing his story at conferences, universities, and community events. His speeches were not just about the incident itself, but about the broader themes of resilience, accountability, and the importance of standing up for what's right. He often emphasized the role of individuals in driving change, urging his audiences to take action in their own lives and communities. Change doesn't happen overnight, he would say, but it starts with each of us doing our part. The resolution also brought significant changes to Sky High Airlines. Under the leadership of its new CEO, Maria Gonzalez, the company embarked on a comprehensive overhaul of its policies and culture. The independent review commissioned by the board of directors revealed systemic issues that went beyond the incident with Colonel Johnson, including a lack of diversity in leadership and a culture that prioritized profits over people. Gonzalez and her team worked diligently to address these issues, implementing a series of reforms that transformed the company from within. One of the most significant changes was the introduction of mandatory anti-bias training for all employees. The training, developed in collaboration with experts in diversity and inclusion, was designed to raise awareness of unconscious biases and provide staff with the tools to recognize and address them. The airline also established a diversity and inclusion task force led by a newly appointed chief diversity officer to oversee these efforts and ensure accountability. In addition to internal reforms, Sky High Airlines took steps to rebuild trust with the public. The company launched a marketing campaign titled *A New Sky High*, which highlighted its commitment to diversity, inclusion, and customer service. The campaign featured testimonials from employees and passengers, including Colonel Johnson, who agreed to participate as a gesture of goodwill. The campaign was well received, and the airline began to see a gradual improvement in its reputation and customer satisfaction ratings. The resolution also had a profound impact on the individuals directly involved in the incident. Jessica, the check-in agent who had denied Colonel Johnson boarding, underwent a personal transformation. After reaching out to Colonel Johnson and receiving his forgiveness, she became an advocate for change within the company. She volunteered to share her story during the anti-bias training sessions, using her experience as a teachable moment for her colleagues. Her courage and willingness to take responsibility inspired others to reflect on their own actions and biases. Mr. Harris, the gate manager, also faced consequences for his role in the incident. He was let go from Sky High Airlines and struggled to find work in the industry. However, he eventually found a new path, working with a non-profit organization that focused on racial justice and equity. In a public statement, he expressed regret for his actions and gratitude for the opportunity to make amends. "I made a terrible mistake," he said, "but I'm committed to learning from it and using my experience to help others." The resolution of the incident also had broader societal implications. It sparked a national conversation about racial bias and discrimination, not just in the travel industry but in all sectors of society. The story of Colonel Johnson became a rallying cry for advocates of social justice, inspiring countless individuals to speak out against injustice and demand accountability. It also highlighted the power of social media and citizen journalism in holding institutions accountable and driving change. In the years that followed, the incident became a case study in corporate responsibility and crisis management. Business schools and leadership programs used it as an example of how to handle, and how not to handle, a public relations crisis. It also served as a reminder of the importance of diversity and inclusion in building a successful and ethical organization. For Colonel Johnson, the resolution was a testament to the power of perseverance and the importance of standing up for what's right. He often reflected on the incident not as a moment of triumph, but as a reminder of the work that still needed to be done. "This wasn't just about me," he would say. "It was about every person who has ever been treated unfairly because of who they are. We've made progress, but the journey is far from over." As he continued his career in the Air Force and his advocacy work, Colonel Johnson remained a symbol of hope and resilience. His story inspired countless individuals to believe in the possibility of change and to take action in their own lives. And as he boarded his next flight, this time greeted with respect and gratitude, he knew that he had made a difference, not just for himself, but for everyone who had been touched by his story. The resolution of the incident was not just an ending, but a new beginning. It was a reminder that even in the face of adversity, change is possible, and that each of us has the power to make a difference. For Colonel Johnson, for Sky High Airlines, and for society as a whole, it was a moment of transformation, one that would be remembered for years to come.